Yo, what is up, guys? My name is Vic, and this is RX, and today we're discussing the Zade, however you say it, the crazy situation that just went on and went down in the sneaker world. The biggest carpet pull, rug pull in the sneaker industry, possibly the biggest scam that I've ever seen firsthand. I mean, RX, kind of, what's going on, man? What is the situation? Kind of, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's crazy. So basically, if you didn't know, Zade Kicks is a big backdoor pre-order guy, and so a lot of providers for these groups, a lot of providers for a lot of sneaker drops and a lot of backdoor groups. He just basically rug pulled them all. He basically, what was it? It was a dissolution of his
Yeah,
whole business
it
that he
dissolved
filed
his,
under.
dissolved his company.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically doesn't have any sort of ties to his company, as well as all those pre-orders that were being fulfilled. So there's about millions of dollars in limbo. I know
Yeah.
a lot of people that are 5 figures out, even 6 figures out on
Yeah.
pre-orders. So if you're one of those people, we're gonna kind of basically go over what you can do, steps you can take, relief groups that you can join, as well as the next things that you could do to avoid this, firsthand. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, I mean, I think it's important for those of you listening in, or maybe you already know this, maybe you're kind of just, you bought some pre-orders from this guy, and you're like, yeah, he's super legit, and turns out he isn't. And that was the situation with most people. He's been doing shoes for 10 plus years. He used to the day started on eBay, and he kind of
Yeah.
transitioned to the pre-order game, and had his own website and that kind of stuff. And so for these last few years, he's really been, sending, getting big orders. Guys are buying, 20K, 30K, 40K of shoes, getting their pairs in. So everyone's like, okay, wow, this looks really good. It has to be legit. But there has been a lot of crazy kind of digging around going on the internet, trying to figure out, how did this work? Like, how is he making his money? And it really just seems like it's probably the most elaborate Ponzi scheme, in sneaker history, which
Right.
is insane. There's been stuff like this in the past to a much smaller degree, where they essentially, build up a reputable brand. They may lose some money in the beginning, and then they just, rug pull and say, yo, I'm out of here. But this guy has spent 10 years leading up to this point, which is absolutely insane.
It's
I mean,
insane.
I think the most crazy thing is that recently they found out that he was actually sourcing primarily from StockX, right? Right?
Yes.
Kind of that as well.
Yeah, 100%. So it actually became news that Zade was sourcing a lot of his products just off StockX themselves, and they're allowing him to do so. He actually had another profile, a burner profile from, I believe it was his wife, and and Bethany, yeah. And so the profile had the most revenue, I think, on StockX, and it was like over millions, like tens of millions in revenue just off that account alone. So he was, what was it? He was basically fulfilling orders off StockX to the people who were buying in on these pre-orders under market.
Yeah, yeah. So I think his whole model was, you pay him X amount of money, and then he takes your money and fulfills past stuff. So then he builds up to big drops. For example, the military fours were huge. The red
Right.
pepper fours were huge. So he pulled in millions on those deals, and maybe just using those funds to fulfill some of the smaller orders from the past. But I personally don't really do Zade stuff. Elite Bricks didn't touch Zade stuff at all, really. And because we were like, pre-orders are already on our thing, waiting long term, but it works for some people. It's a really good passive source of income if it's a legit operation, but most people were led to think it was. So I guess the question is, kind of what's a plan of recourse? And I mean, RX, we've seen guys on Twitter, on Discord down six
Yeah.
figures at least, right?
Yeah, down pretty bad, and there's a lot of options right now going around. The day of, I know on Twitter I saw a lot of Twitter spaces of people that were kind of, they put their whole life savings into this, so they didn't really know the next steps of what to do. And of course, we want to stress that this isn't financial advice. This is only what we can encourage if you are in the situation. But joining a relief group and kind of finding out what to say. There's a lot of banks that deal with PayPal. Cash App, I know was used to fulfill a lot of the orders, and they're currently dealing with a lot of situations where you can actually call in through customer service and try to charge a cashback for those claims. And there's a lot of, since the whole business is dissolved, there's a lot of claims going around that you can basically say that the orders themselves just aren't fulfilled. There was no tracking provided, and it was a whole scam pretty much, just to get money up front. And so with that being understood, I know a lot of people, they got relieved of their money. Of course, there's a lot of situations where a lot of people aren't that lucky and they're just out of the hole. And so if that's you in that case, then you know, there's a lot of other options that you can look towards in terms of that. But you know, I think we should definitely talk about also in the future, just kind of things you can do to kind of avoid this whole situation of backdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think RX mentioned, you know, what can you do as a person who got scammed by this or you were a victim of this? You know, first things first, these relief groups are really good. You kind of work in the community with guys, you know, whether it's on Discord or Twitter. We'll probably link a few down below
Yeah.
in the description, kind of just some groups you can hop into. That kind of people also in the same boat as you, depending on the, you know, obviously the number amount, but the same premise stands. So not tangibles, like what can you do? What's a good set of action if you did get scammed of this? First things first, I think a good option is deciding and kind of making sure, how did I buy this and when did I buy it? You know, if this was a very old pre-order from, you know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that makes it a bit harder. Now, if it was a recent, let's say you bought the Military Fours last weekend or 3 weeks ago, I think it was the Memorial Day sale, or maybe it was the Cinco de Mayo. I think it was the Cinco de Mayo sale.
Yeah, there was a sale. I believe it was like 50% off discounts or something crazy.
Yeah, you get like 48% off some
Yeah.
stuff, 33%, 25%, so it's like different levels. If that was recent, now you are much more protected. First things first, if you use Amex, Amex we know is really good for chargeback protection and charging back. So if you did use an Amex card, you can go ahead and charge back, contact Amex, contact your local, service rep, whatever you need to do, and file that chargeback immediately. It is important to kind of act fast here and, you know, join kind of the way that is happening with this scandal situation kind of thing. Secondly, if you use PayPal, his site was linked to PayPal, and most people really use PayPal for these purchases, especially recently. You kind of have 180 days to really, you know, be fully protected with PayPal. And PayPal is actually, I think that RX like a whole response team, I believe, actually for this kind of situation. So they really kind of have staff dedicated to help you guys. And then I think, how does it work, RX? Basically, go on the PayPal thing and say these goods were never received. It's kind of what they would.
Yeah,
Right?
that's what people are encouraging. You can basically open up a claim explaining your whole situation, and so with that, you can, you know, file under the fact that the item was never. Not only was it not as described, also that it just wasn't fulfilled at all. So
Yeah.
a lot of people have been getting instant, you know, payouts back. Of course, it depends on when it is. I know that they said if it's past 180 days, the transaction was made. You know, there's some people who have pre-orders that are, you know, pending from over 2 years. So if that's the case, you know, that's a little different situation. But, you know, if you try, there's always, you know, a way to get your money back for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a difficult situation, but it isn't something you guys can, you know, take action to do. Now,
Exactly.
granted, PayPal is, you know, a bit harder after 180 days. You should still contest it. You definitely should phone into PayPal, try to talk to a person versus getting kind of a message with a, you know, automation flow.
Yes.
Try getting on the phone with a person. They probably have a lot of backup right now in terms of just people phoning in because of the situation. They're definitely aware of it. So try getting on the phone, explain the situation, and, you know, PayPal luckily did freeze his account.
Yeah.
So there are funds that they're kind of using to kind of pay people back.
Yes.
So it isn't like they don't have funds to any degree. There are funds in there, at least, if, you know, I have no idea, but I imagine at least a few $100,000 at the very least, if not millions. In our opinion, you should kind of, you know, hook your banker and say, hey, these things never came. It was this guy pulled the rug. He, you know, kind of essentially scammed us all. I want to contest these charges. Now, that is at least taking action and something you can do in the short term. Now, whether you get your money back, you know, let's hope that happens, and let's really hope you guys kind of, you know, can get sorted. But there are no guarantees, obviously. You know, this is obviously a very illegal thing. This isn't like some sort of thing he's going to get away with, especially legally. Now, financially, there is no guarantee, guys. You know, these steps will give you the best chance to get your funds back. You think about it, RX, this is just still crazy, man, the way this stuff
It's
happens.
insane.
Like, right? I mean, like, it's sad because you see like people like these are guys making
Oh.
9 to 5s, like kids who've been reselling their whole life, and, you know, this
Yeah.
is the epitome of toxic sneaker culture, you know?
Exactly, yeah. And I think, how do you think it will kind of turn out in the sense of, you know, reselling in the future? I think a lot of people are going to be really wary in terms of just dealing with people in general, in terms of, you know,
Yeah.
trusting them with their money for pre-orders, backdoors, or anything. You know, it definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
kinda ruined the
Especially
game.
Pre-orders,
Mhm.
especially pre-orders. You know, like kind of what I see, you know, what my vision is that, you know, like this really takes away and really polarizes this community. So if you are like a guy who likes, you know, who lost big on this, you probably don't want to touch backdoors again. I mean, like, why?
Yeah. Why would you? Yeah.
And, you know, if maybe you didn't get scammed, at the very least you're hesitant now. So you kind of have to work with stuff that maybe puts you at less risk, which is kind of why we and like RX were talking about this a couple of days ago. Obviously, Elite Bricks kind of focuses on short-term stuff. Like we really think the most safe way to scale is these short-term quick flips, things in hand, in stores, things you can get online. Like what I think is happening is Bricks and Amazon really kind of growing. I mean, what do you think, RX? Do you see these kind of like short-term stuff really pushing up in the future?
Yeah, 100%. With Bricks and Amazon, I think that's the more sustainable way to go. If you're talking about shoes, this stuff is really high risk. High risk, high reward. We always talk about that. But if you really want a sustainable sort of business, dealing with Bricks and Amazon, like a lot of people think it's the future. So
you are kind of lower on capital. I've always told people, I was like, make sure you're spending your money in comfortably, right?
Yeah.
And that's, obviously you want to say again, this isn't like our advice. And we're just saying, hey, generally speaking, when you're spending your money, you should be putting all your life savings towards a pre-order because, what if that shoe gets pushed back? And that's how many pre-orders work. And now there's guys like, Zade, one day we'll find out how to pronounce his name, but these kind of guys who, pre-order shoes that haven't even like officially have a SKU yet. Like the Chicago 85s, they came out, I think he put them out for like pre-orders 3 to 5 months ago. They didn't even have a SKU then. If it sounds too good to be true, guys, and this like not even just backdoors or pre-orders, if it sounds too good to be true, you aren't freaking special or lucky. They are trying to rip you off. Recommendation, kind of what I think people should do is, focus less risky stuff. Get into Bricks, get into Amazon. It isn't those crazy hype shoes, but it's stuff that really you're assured from. When you're buying a link online at Nike, when you're buying a link online at Hibbett, you aren't saying, okay, well I actually get the shoe a week from now. You're gonna get that shoe a week from now. 9 times out of 10, unless it gets oversold or it gets canceled, whatever. And keep in mind, guys, where you're selling your stuff matters a lot. Like if we're selling on Amazon, we are selling with some people selling on StockX and Go. So I mean, I think we're digressing a little bit. We kind of keep this series going. I think next week we'll probably discuss Amazon reselling or brick flips itself, but just I hope in the video we kind of gave some advice, kind of outlining a good course of action, maybe what you can do, steps to take, how does this even happen, and it's obviously the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more stuff. We'll link some more material down below.
Yeah.
Whether it's these relief groups, just some general Twitter kind of threads. I think he has a whole kind of subreddit as well, just for kind of the scam. But yeah, I mean, I hope that was some more value to you guys. RX, thanks again for being on, man. I think we hopefully kind of gave some insight, but as you guys obviously are trying to get more into these quick flips bricks, we kind of are opening up memberships this weekend, Saturday. And we always, our job is to give you value. We focus these quick flip stuff that really isn't putting you guys at much risk. And it doesn't matter if you're selling, a Jordan 1 Low, Air Monarch, or a freaking backpack on Amazon, right? That makes you money. So once again, thanks guys for kind of tuning in. RX, I appreciate you, bro. And we'll stay tuned for the next kind of podcast / kind of little poking thing with screen recording, I guess, going forward. Thanks, guys.